Okay, we have SableDragonRook here, about to run Spyro Reignited Trilogy. Spyro run 80 dragons. I'll toss over to you whenever you're ready.
All right. Excuse me. Thanks for having me. I'm SableDragonRook. You can call me Sable. We're gonna be doing 80 dragons from Spyro 1 today. This is the Reignited version of Spyro, so it's the PS4 version, not the original PS1. Timing is gonna start when I hit this first input to start the game. So let's just get started. I'll give you a little countdown here. You can start the timer in 3, 2, 1, go. So welcome everybody to 80 Dragons. Hope you're all doing well tonight. The goal of this run is going to be to collect all of the game's 80 dragons. And that might, seem easy. We're just going to run from dragon to dragon. But in fact, we have quite a lot of considerations that we need to keep in mind as we zip through these worlds. If you're familiar at all with Spyro, you might know the story of why these dragons are trapped in crystal, but if you're not familiar, basically we are this little purple dragon named Spyro, and one day his friends were, just chatting, having a TV interview, and they had the misfortune of calling the big bad guy, Nasty Nork, ugly. Nasty Nork wasn't very happy to hear that, and to get back at them, he turned all of the dragons into crystal. So little Spyro, who didn't get turned into crystal because reasons, has to go and make sure that all of the dragons are safe and that all of the gems are collected and, just put his world back in order. So for right now, our primary focus is going to be, like I said before, zipping from dragon to dragon. You'll see that I'm picking up gems, but in fact, those are completely unnecessary, and just for fun, I like to try to finish 80 dragons with less than 1,000 gems. You don't need to, it's just, fun little extra criteria I put on myself. So we may or may not do that during this run. Normally we absolutely would need gems, but this is a glitched run. I'll talk about the glitches that we're going to be doing a little bit closer to the time that we're going to be doing them. So for now, it's all about these dragons. Spyro works on a system of home worlds that have, a series of levels within them. We're currently in Artisan's home world. That's the very first world. You'll always start here. And as we progress through the game, we're going to be traveling from homeworld to homeworld to access more levels. Once we hop out of this level, I'll tell you a little bit more about the balloonist. He's the one who's responsible for taking us from world to world, and he's going to be a kind of important part of how we glitch our way through this game and don't do anything that we're supposed to do. But for right now, my main concern is getting to the end of Town Square. Unfortunately, that's over a big old wall that we normally can't hop over until the very end of the level. So instead, I'm going to try to use a little hitbox exploit so that when this dragon disappears, he'll lift me right into the air. And we'll just stand here. And in that way, I can hop straight to the end of the level, and then we don't need to do the rest. That hitbox appears just because when you free a dragon, a fairy will pop up afterwards, and that fairy will save your progress, or, if you liked the dragon and you want to see it again, you can also, talk to the fairy and ask to see it again. That fairy on that particular dragon will, for some reason, create that hitbox. It really appears to only work with him, which, thank goodness, because, shortens the level by quite a lot. Fairies are going to be a recurring theme. They seem to be sort of the buggiest parts of this game. They're another important part of how we're going to glitch ourselves through later. Dark Hollow here is not a very common level to see among Spyro speedruns. It's often skipped. There's not really very much to get here. So any percent, like any percent NBS, the main Spyro category, will not do this level at all. Of course, there's dragons in here, so we need to be in here. But it's important to us in this run for another reason as well. Every world of Spyro has a boss. And in order to access the boss of Artisans, the world that we're in right now, we are required to exit one of the levels, doesn't matter which one, through the Return Home portal. Thankfully for us, there's a dragon right in front of this Return Home portal, so we can just grab this guy, hop out, call it good. As soon as we go through that portal, that's going to tell the game to unlock the boss, and then we can go and get the dragon from him as well. The world's boss, Toasty, is inside this dragon head. Keep this dragon head in mind because it'll make some of the game later make a little bit more sense. See how it opened? We're going to be running into issues with making these dragon heads open later, and it'll make a bit more sense. All the bosses have just one dragon that is used as a save point before you fight the boss, and I mean, let's be real. Spyro bosses, not really the hardest thing you're probably going to fight in your gaming career, but they still gave you a save point in case you need a little bit of help. So because the save point is before the bosses, we very rarely will even see any of the bosses in Spyro. So I'm going to be heading to the balloonist next. He's the person who is responsible for taking you from world to world in Spyro. We've completed Artisan's World. Like, we've gotten every dragon, we're good to go. So this balloonist guy, it is a different balloonist every time, don't be fooled, has this hot air balloon, and he's like, sure, I'll take you to the next world, which in this case is Peacekeepers. But every balloonist has a specific set of requirements that they need you to fulfill, or else they'll say, no, you can't go yet because you haven't helped the dragon realms enough, you know? So in this case, this balloonist wanted us to free 10 dragons before we could progress. That was easy because we're trying to get all the dragons anyway. The next balloonist is going to be a little bit tougher. He wants 1,200 gems, and there's also going to be a balloonist later that wants 6,000 gems. And in both of those cases, it's kind of a tall order. And in fact, it's tall enough that we're just not going to do it. So the balloonist here in Peacekeepers is the one that we're going to be skipping using glitches. And like I said, I'll talk about that, how that works, a little bit closer to when we do it. But because we're going to be skipping both of the balloonists that require gems, that's why it doesn't matter, you know, how many gems I get. Because in an ideal world where these glitches work, we never need gems at all. The glitches are not foolproof. They're actually rather complicated and sort of easy to fail. So just for a little bit of marathon safety, I'm going to spend a little extra time and pick up an extra life. Any failure on the glitch, which is called the balloonist skip, is going to result in a death. And we only have 4 lives. We have to do the glitch twice, so that's going to automatically be 2 lives, and then we're going to take an intentional death in a later level. So that's 3 out of our 4 lives. We're going to take this extra life just to be safe. It's not a super big deal to game over, you know, it's not the worst thing in the world, but obviously we'd rather not do that. So this level is going to be our first encounter with blue egg thieves. One of the balloonists later is going to say, hey, I'm not going to take you any further until you collect 5 dragon eggs, which are carried by these little blue egg thieves. Because, you know, he cares about the dragon world and he wants to make sure those eggs are safe. These thieves are fast, they'll run away as soon as they see you. But if you can flame them, they'll give you the little pink egg that they're carrying. For the sake of a speed run, we want to flame them while we're in the air, or I guess more specifically, while we have downward momentum. Because if we do that, it won't play the little cutscene of getting the egg. It'll just home it right into us like it did there. And all of that, wow, what a friendly man. All of that has to do with how the leaderboards measure time in these runs. The game has an in-game timer. It has a guidebook with a timer in the top corner. So the primary concern is typically to keep the in-game time as low as possible. In-game time continues to run while the egg thief cutscene is playing, so that's why we skip it. There's only going to be one level where we intentionally leave before we have all the dragons. So if anybody notices me leave and it doesn't say all dragons collected, maybe post that in chat, because I'm gonna be like, why do we only have 79 dragons? Far be it from me to admit that that has definitely happened before.
Like doing 100% run and getting 99%.
You just sit and look at your inventory screen like, where is it? I can't find it. So Dr. Shemp is the boss of this world. Again, not really going to see him because the dragon is in front of him. We will get to see, I was going to say the next world, but it's not really. It's chronologically the next world, but it's not the next world we're going to be going to. Blowhard, we will get to see him a little bit. So we're going to be heading into Ice Cavern. That's the final level of this homeworld. Now is a great time to start explaining what's going to happen during this glitch. Like, we're going to straight up break the game, and we're going to do it more than once. And it's got a lot of steps. So here's what happens. I was talking about these fairies earlier that pop up after you free a dragon. If you speak to a fairy, and then while you're speaking to the fairy, you glide away from the fairy, without stopping talking to the fairy, and then you exit the dialogue box from the fairy while Spyro is still gliding right before he lands and a certain distance from the fairy, which is a whole lot of nonsense to say you glide away from the fairy. You can still talk to her, even if you're not near her anymore. It's a glitch called Fairy Storage that will allow you to bring up the fairy dialogue box no matter where you're standing. Like, you can walk completely to the other side of the map and she'll still be, you know, available to talk. The good thing is that the game thinks that you're controlling Spyro when you talk to a fairy, which, I mean, makes sense, right? Because in what context would you not be controlling Spyro when you free a dragon? When we move between worlds using the balloon, I can't move Spyro. He's just stuck there. But if I use fairy storage to speak to the fairy and gain control of Spyro while I'm in the balloon, trying to leave this world, I can move. And that's great because outside of bounds, hidden behind the walls of Peacekeepers, is a developer's tool that they didn't take out before they published the game. And it's actually a balloon with no requirement. So remember I said that it costs 1,200 gems to leave this world, and later 6,000 gems to leave a later world? By using this dev tool, we can go to those places that would normally be blocked off without having to pay the cost. And that's what we're going to be doing here in just a second. So our concern right now is getting fairy storage off of Magnus here. So as I said before, we're going to do some fancy stuff with the text box of this fairy and gliding away to make sure that we can talk to her anywhere we want. Sometimes it can take a couple tries. She can be a little finicky.
Hi, Spyro.
There you go. So, see, I'm over here. Sure, I can talk to her. Great. Next, we're going to say, hey, balloonist, take me to Artisans. Now, I'll use the fairy to gain control of Spyro and charge out of the balloon. So the game thinks I'm going to Artisans, which, that's no problem. This little box is what we want to end up inside, and we did. So, part 1 of the glitch, done successfully. But it's not over yet. Okay. I needed to pay attention. There's only a couple frames where you can do that. So I told the first balloonist to take me to Artisan's World. It did that. And so now I've death abused to tell the game, okay, you took me to Artisans, that's great. I told the second balloon to take me to Nasty's World, a world that we are not supposed to have access to. And now it's working on doing that, but it's really confused. It keeps trying to take me to Artisans. It's playing the intro cutscene because it has no idea what's happening. Thankfully, we are going to be in Nasty's, as you see here, but nothing is loaded. So check this out.
Hey, Nasty's ancient history now.
You're in
So,
Nasty's
what's in
world
there?
now,
I
Spyro.
believe this
And you
is
are the
Nasty's
dragon that must
treasure
defeat
hoard.
him.
But
Bring
the
him
gate
on.
will only
I'm
open
ready.
if you have found
Reach the
everything in the
exit in
Dragon
each of
Kingdom.
Nasty's
Come
lands.
back when you
Then
have
you
reached
can challenge the
100%.
York himself.
2 dragons playing at once, portals that look like they're just floating in thin air, all sorts of weird stuff is happening, right? So this is Nasty's World, this is the final world of the game. This would be where you find the final boss, Nasty Nork. This is the world that's locked off by the 6,000 gem requirement. The reason that everything looked weird was because we used that dev balloon to say, hey, take me to Nasty's World. And the game's like, okay, I'm not sure about this, but okay. We end up here, and the game does a check. You know, it says, okay, you have 6,000 gems. Wait a second. No, you don't. What are you doing here? And it gets super confused. So because the game doesn't expect us to be here, it doesn't know what to load. And it doesn't load all of its assets properly. That's why there's 2 dragons. One of those dragons is only supposed to appear after you defeat the final boss, Nasty. But since we're here when we're not supposed to be, the game is like, I'm confused. I don't know. I have both, I guess. That's just its solution, is to load, you know, stuff weirdly. And you see now there's a dragon head over there in the level that I just entered. The dragon head was not here the first time because, again, it's not loading the assets that it should be. And that's why we did that level first, because the dragon head would close because we're not supposed to be here. And the exciting thing is, we're going to do that glitch again here in just a minute. We're just wrapping up Nasty's World because, you know, it's convenient to get it out of the way. This run is unique in that you never actually see Nasty Nork. He has no dragons in his level, so there's no reason to go see him. So instead, we're actually just going to end in the middle of a random level where it's most convenient to get that final dragon. I will intentionally get hit by that guy. So that's it for Nasty's World. Since we're completely done with that and we never have to come back, we're going to go straight back to Ice Cavern so that we can do the same glitch again off of Magnus again. This time, the reason that we're doing it is because the next world, Magic Crafters, is locked behind a 1200 gem requirement. And again, ain't nobody got time to collect all those gems. So we're just gonna glitch ourselves in the exact same way.
Hi, Spyro. Hi, Spyro.
So there's fairy storage. I can talk to the fairy anytime I want.
I'm still waiting.
I'll ask him to go to Artisans,
Hi,
take
Spyro.
control of Spyro, charge out of the balloon. There is a very specific flutter pattern to get Spyro down here without dying. Ooh, that's going to be close. Ooh. We made it though. As I said before, you only have a couple frames to choose what world you want to go to from this balloon. It's freaking out because it's trying to load Magic Crafters and Artisans at the same time, since we did tell it, you know, to go to both places. If we were to miss that dev tool, if we were, you know, to glide underneath it, to not land in it, whatever, Spyro will fall through the world, and he'll eventually just, like, fall into Artisans somehow. Which is fine, you can just try the glitch again at that point. I mean, of course, you've lost a lot of time, but that's no big deal. You can just try again. You'll see the same thing is true here as in Nasty's World. The game doesn't expect us to be here, so none of the enemies are loaded. Now, during that glitch, if you do happen to miss time telling the dev balloon what world you want to go to, if you either do it too early or too late, a variety of things can happen. They're all soft locks, but they're just a variety of soft locks. Sometimes Spyro will, like, fall down in Artisans like he's supposed to, but you can't move. Sometimes he'll fall past the death floor of the world, and so he'll just fall literally forever unless you restart the game. Very rarely, it'll actually kind of load both worlds. There'll be, like, circles on a black background, but then nothing will happen. That was not very kind. Another thing that might be of interest is that, as I said before, this category, you know, all Spyro categories, are timed on in-game time. So our goal is, whenever possible, reducing how much in-game time is spent. When dragons are playing, in-game time is not ticking. But other things in the level continue to happen. So, for example, in that level that we just finished, the walls going up and down that the wizards are controlling are still happening even when the dragon is playing. So depending on how quickly you get to the dragon, you can let him play for a little while to cycle the wizards to be more in your favor so that you don't have to wait for them. Oh, he juked us. It has been a long time since that happened. This guy's gonna be a little munchkin, isn't he? There we go. Blue egg thieves. They can be speedy. The reason we're getting these 5 dragon eggs is, like I said before, to leave Magic Crafters, the world that we're in now. That's what the balloonist wants before he'll take us anywhere. We could absolutely just do the glitch again, just like we have been doing to skip that requirement. But in this case, the eggs are essentially in your way anyway. It's, at best, the same amount of time, or at worst, I guess, the same amount of time, and at best, very slightly faster to get the eggs.
You got a quick second so I can pop in with a donation?
For sure.
Okay, we have $15 from Invenerable with the comment of "Arr," and I can only assume, and I did double check after making that assumption, that went towards all of our humans we're saving in Resogun being dressed as pirates. So if you would rather see ninjas or zombies, you know what to do.
Nice. We're bonking into this dragon in front of this flight level. Flight levels are kind of a notorious part of Spyro. Unfortunately, we won't be doing any in this run because the only thing that they provide is gems, which we definitely have a no-no relationship with in this run. We don't need gems, and there's no point in doing flight. Which is sad because I'm an individual level runner for those flights, and they're special to me, and I miss them.
They're probably fun.
I think they're fun. A lot of people think they're by far the hardest part of Spyro, and I would actually kind of agree. They're super competitive, I can tell you that. People fighting for months over a tenth of a second. And again, we'll hit that thief while we have downward momentum so that we can avoid the cutscene. Death was intentional. That was the intentional death I was talking about earlier. It gets us back to the dragon and back to the supercharge so that we spend a little bit less time. So that should be every dragon egg that we need. We should now be good to go as far as leaving this world. And the next world is going to require 50 dragons, which I do believe we actually already have. So that requirement will be no problem. The balloonists don't stand in our way anymore. Now it's just, we've essentially entered the movement optimization section of the run. Not nearly as glitchy and more just focused on, smart movement. This boss we will actually get to fight for a little bit. He is a multi-stage boss. We only have to do his first stage. But that does make him the only boss that we actually get to encounter. And here's the boss. He's just floaty whirlwind man, as you do.
Mind if I pop in? This
Definitely.
Bid war is starting to heat up.
Yeah.
We got faceless ninjas here. $20 donation. Of course, they're a ninja. They're coming to save the ninjas. Although, reading what they're talking about in the chat, they'd rather be save rabbits. But that's like saving animals. And we don't save animals here. This is a speedrun.
That's right. Bye-bye, animals. We're doing it for
What's
the
the
times.
dragons? We're saving the dragons.
Yeah, save the dragons. That's good enough. Get rid of the animals. Speaking of getting rid of animals, you might notice that I just charged into a goat that I didn't need. They pop butterflies for Sparks to eat, and those are called fodder animals. They come, you know, in a variety of sizes. Chickens, goats, sheep, all sorts. I am actually doing that on purpose. Every 10 of those that I charge through, I guess, will create an extra life butterfly. And that extra life butterfly will heal Sparks no matter what color he is. It'll bring him back to yellow. Beastmakers, the world that we've just entered, is pretty unanimously agreed to be the hardest world. So it's very nice to have that full heal during this world. Ideally, we pop it somewhere between Misty Bog and Treetops. We'll see where that ends up. But I do get fodder animals throughout the run, trying to sort of space them such that they'll give me an extra life heal in this world. We're gonna hop into Misty Bog up here. Misty is generally considered to be the hardest level in essentially any Spyro speedrun. It's also gonna be one that we're gonna go into twice. It's the level that the run will end on, and it's the only level that we will intentionally leave before we found all the dragons. It's kind of shaped like a Y, so it's faster to go in, go down one path, leave, and then come back and do the other path, which is why we do it this way. The enemies here, the reason that this level is so hard, right? Normally in a Spyro level, you might have one enemy that's kinda, you know, they're really aggressive or their hitbox is kinda cheeky. This level is just nothing but that. Every enemy has big hitboxes, really aggressive tracking, and really long animations if they hit you. So it's a super easy level to die on, you know, for speedrunners and casual players alike. And it's part of the reason why it's nice to have one life remaining at this point. Or to pop the extra life either right before or as you enter Beastmakers. Treetops is a fun level, I think, for anybody who played this on its PS1 version, probably as a kid. Treetops gives lots of people trouble. It's very maze-like. You're expected to pick up a ton of supercharges across the level and essentially go from platform to platform to platform, all while carrying a supercharge in order to solve the puzzle of how to get to the dragon. We're not going to do that because when do speedrunners ever do what they're supposed to do? Instead, I am going to clip right off the edge of this platform by slowing myself down on this house, and we go straight from the beginning of the puzzle all the way to the end, without having to jump across all those platforms. The entire level is made up of platforms, and we don't do any of those. We just got our 60th dragon at Jed, which means we are right on track. We haven't missed any. And we'll pick up that supercharge just to do this jump a little faster. Old Chad is over here talking about tacos. It's like 1 in the morning for me, guys. I can't have tacos. Why are you making me hungry?
Same. But I already had tacos.
You already had tacos?
I had tacos for dinner like 5 hours ago. I know, you kill this.
What did I even have for dinner? Oh, I had sushi for dinner. I guess I can't complain about that. There's really good sushi, too. Don't give me the idea that Taco Bell is still open. Like, don't even introduce that into my psyche. Because I'm sure it probably is open. I'm sure you're right. So we're heading into Dreamweavers here. This is the final world. I mean, technically it's not the final world. Nasty's world is, but we did Nasty's a long time ago. Now, one thing that I haven't really touched on, but that's important to note, again, trying to keep in mind this in-game time idea that we want to manage our in-game time and spend as little of it as possible by exploiting the mechanics of the game. There's a difference between exiting a level and using a guidebook to exit the level. If I go into a portal, like I just did, and then when I'm in there I hit exit level, I will come out in front of the portal that I just entered. Just like right in front of it on the map. If I use the guidebook, which I have been doing occasionally at certain points of this run, it will take me instead to where the balloonist would take me if I chose to travel to this world. Sometimes where the balloonist takes you is a little bit closer to where you want to go next, so that's why you guidebook. In this case, I really need to remember to guidebook out of this level. I don't know why I always forget, but I do. Because it will take me closer to where I need to be, number one. But number two, if I don't guidebook, I'm going to have to ride some whirlwinds to get to where I want to be. In-game time does unfortunately still pass while you're riding whirlwinds, so we'll just essentially be wasting time to get to a place that we already could have been for free. For this next little trick, we are going to double back on a supercharge. We're going to go directly backwards and still pick up the supercharge in order to get over here. There's my extra life. A little bit late this time, but that's okay. In order to do that supercharge trick, you do actually need a controller that the left joystick doesn't have any dead zones. The controller that you do it on does matter. Alright, let's guidebook. Don't exit. But yeah, if you don't have a controller that has really accurate left joystick, you will never be able to make the turn tight enough. And so you'll never be able to double back on the supercharge. And of course there are other ways to solve that level, but that currently appears to be the fastest. Dark Passage here is essentially a straight line. It's one of the more forgiving levels in terms of routing, in that there really isn't routing, you just run. However, these red dogs that you occasionally see can kind of be the bane of your existence. The fools, the ones that are carrying these lanterns, control what the dogs look like. When the fools have their lanterns lit, the dogs are tiny and easy to beat. When their lanterns are not lit, the dogs get big and spooky like that. Big spooky dogs have insanely long animations if they hit you. Like, I timed it once, and I'm pretty sure it was somewhere in the realm of 6 years. So we don't want to be hit by those red dogs, and they do also have a very aggressive, like, aggro range. So they're kind of the main issue with this level. You'll also notice that for the entire run, I've essentially been running Spyro directly into stairs with his face. That's called bonking, and bonking up stairs is the fastest way to climb them. When Spyro runs into something when he's gliding, he'll ram his face on it. Probably doesn't feel good. But then, before he completely finishes falling, you can jump again. So that's a little bit faster than just hopping up the steps like normal.
Mind if I take a second?
Sure.
Okay, so we have 2 more donations for that Resogun bid war. We have Darth G-Man with $25 saying, "Go Asuka, you can do it from your biggest fan Galahad. Also, brains." And then another $10 from Invenerable with another R. Currently, that bid war is tied at $25 for zombies and $25 for pirates.
Boy, things are getting tight in the bid wars.
I'm just waiting for another $5 to go. We'll be right back where we started with no winner. But we'll have another $75 for charity. And for reference, that bid war will close pretty much as we transition into the run.
You guys still have plenty of time to break that tie. Although I guess to be fair, we do have 73 dragons. We are coming to the end here.
Getting close. That's what? Only 107 to go? This is 180 dragons, right?
Totally 180 dragons. I mean, I'm just gonna get the other 100 in about 20 seconds, no problem.
Okay, good. I knew you could do it.
Supercharge here through a wall that doesn't actually exist. It did, however, kind of clip me, so we're gonna have to go back to the dragon. The wall didn't clip me, but the castle that it's attached to sure did. It can be a little bit finicky sometimes. You might have seen my height just tank right as I went around that castle. That's what extra lives are for. So as we're wrapping up this run, we've only got essentially 2, or I guess 1.5 more levels to do. If this run interests anybody, there is both a PC and a console version. I'm doing the console version. PC is a little bit more accessible. if it's something that any of you would like to try out. PC does one fewer balloonist skip, just because the skip actually looks entirely different on PC than it does on console. So check it out if it interests you. We are all a very friendly community, so.
I'm actually kind of curious. When running on PC, do people typically use like keyboard and mouse, or also using a controller?
I think most runners still prefer to use a controller, but there's actually some funky stuff that goes on with the PC. Depending on what frames you're running at, Spyro can actually jump further or higher, so there is a requirement to show how many frames you're running at so that you don't have an unfair advantage. The game runs a little bit funky. In a good way, though.
And if I know categories, there's also a category where you don't have to show any frames you're running at.
I do believe that you are probably correct.
It's the way these things typically work.
Yeah. So this would have been this world's boss. You can see him bouncing around like a weirdo back there. We got his dragons without needing to fight him, so back to Misty Bog. Our final 2 dragons, hopefully we only need 2, are in here. So timing will stop when I touch the final dragon and pull up my menu to show that we do in fact have 80 dragons. I'll call that out when it happens. This room is notoriously the hardest in the game. I expect to get hit. I might not. Yeah, there we go. That's fine. This is the 80th dragon, so as soon as he stops playing and I pull up the menu, we will stop timing. That's basically going to be in 3, 2, 1, stop. 2035. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, 2035 would have been a new world record. It was just really good routing change that dropped the world record below this. But just a couple weeks ago, this would have been a world record, so I am super stoked to have been able to do that at a marathon. Give you guys a good run. That's 80 dragons. Yeah, we do have 80. I always have to check, because sometimes, you know, all celebratory, yay, we finished the run, and we only have 79. But I do